The Commentary Booth is a show for media lovers by media lovers just like you. If you want to support the show, go to pariomagazine.com.au. Welcome to the Commentary Booth, where we watch, and you guessed it, commentate on the week that was in movies and TV. I'm your host and play-by-play commentator, Jamie Apps, and each week I'll be joined by a rotating cast of colour commentators to help you find your next viewing treat. This week I'm joined by a super special guest, and he's the brand new and first ever Australian IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion, the Sniper of the Skies, Robbie Eagles.
Hey, Jamie, thanks for having me on the commentary booth. I'm very excited to be here and talk some stuff with you about television and movies and whatnot.
Wonderful. As a little introduction to all of our listeners, what would you say are your all-time favourite movies and TV shows?
The things that I go back to, Scott Pilgrim vs. the World is something that I watch on a lot of flights that I take around the world, and it's something that I fell in love with after I saw it for the first time. And in terms of TV shows, I think Scrubs was probably the thing that I've watched the most amount of repetitions since I got like the box set DVDs when I was still a teenager. So it's definitely something that I can always go back to and chuck a random episode on and still be enthralled by. So they're probably the top ones of their genres, but it rotates on like a monthly and weekly basis based on what I kind of feel like, or if I want that nostalgia hit, I'll go back to something that I've already viewed before.
Two great choices there. I think a lot of people would put those two shows and movies at the top of their list.
I'd like to hope so anyway. They're my kind of people if they do.
Obviously, we probably should talk about the big victory in the Tokyo Dome. Congratulations on becoming the 90th IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion and first Australian to ever hold a title in New Japan Pro Wrestling. How special was that moment for you?
Very special. Like the moment still hasn't been lost on me just yet. Especially being the champion. You know, I'm reigning and I will be defending soon. So, and being the 90th champion is really a little bit of an extra specialness for me because I was born in 1990. So for me, it's like this whole thing of like circulating numbers. So I'm like, oh, that's actually really cool. I can, I can say stuff like established 1990 and then EST 90 if I want to as well. But yeah, surreal moments have been something that's been following my career as each year goes on, from getting to New Japan Pro Wrestling for the first time to where we are now. So it's something that I always dreamed of. It's something that I always strived for, and my goals were set in this direction. So to achieve it finally is just like a culmination. But once you hit that milestone, it's okay, what's the next one? What's the next thing? Can I be the longest reigning champion? Can I have the most defenses? Can I have the most prolific matches as champion? Can I win the best of Super Juniors as the champion? Can I win the Junior Tag League as the champion? These are all the things that my mind's going to now, because it's kind of like you don't want to just hit that spot and then plateau. You need to keep striving for more. So I'm going to do the best I can to be the best champion this division's ever had.
Yeah, once you hit that top level, you can't just rest on your laurels. You've got to keep pushing for more.
No, it's exactly like when the Sharks won the premiership in 2016 and then, couldn't quite back it up the next year, but they had the target on their back. So,
and the target has already been placed on your back by Hiromu. How did his announcement that he was already going to challenge the winner before the show even started affect your match? Did it put more pressure on the match?
No, I heard his opening remarks and he made that statement, but I really wasn't focused on it at the time because I had such tunnel vision of just, I need to get through this match. I need to win the championship, that nothing else really mattered at that time and place. It was kind of after I got all emotional, realizing that I had won the title and thought of my friends, my family, my training partners, PWA, everywhere I've been in my wrestling career, once that all kind of came to a halt and pause, that's when I kind of went, okay, there's a guy eyeing me off over here. Oh yeah, I remember this thing that happened at the start of the show. So then my direction did shift. It didn't put any extra pressure on myself because I think I was carrying the weight of the world on my shoulders going into that match anyway. So, even if it did, I don't think I could have had anything heavier on my back at that point.
And yeah, you mentioned sort of getting quite emotional. Did sort of realizing what the situation was back at home impact that as well?
Yeah, I spoke about it going into the match, that I was fighting for everyone that was going through tough times in Australia, like whether they were still in lockdown, coming out of it, light at the end of the tunnel, not in lockdown at all, but seeing their friends and family in other states suffer through such restrictions and the changing climate of this new normal of life that we're facing. And it hurts me because my friends and family are going through it too. Like I left just as the lockdown started in Sydney, and I was very close to not making it, as Kevin Kelly spoke about on commentary over that match. So yeah, it really did affect me because not only was I doing it for myself, I was doing it to try and create some morale and, raise spirits back home, because I knew so many people were tuning in to watch where they normally wouldn't because they might have a busier life and schedule outside of this restrictive nature. So I knew there was that added pressure and incentive for me to win because I wanted everyone to have a feel-good moment. And, I've always done everything in my career, not just on my own, but with everyone behind me, helping me, even just thinking of me. So, yeah, it wasn't just a singular effort. It was everyone's spirit and vibe that they were sending me that helped me kind of get through it.
It seems to have paid off. There was a lot of outpouring of support following the match. How did that feel to see all of that coming through?
I don't know if my phone has ever blown up in the way that it did straight after that match. It was, I took a screen recording of like going through my Instagram messages and just scrolling and going, when does it stop? And I had to send it to my wife being like, this is almost like not real. And I still haven't been able to get back to everyone, you know what I mean? Like I've been trying to get onto my different platforms and just say a kind of general thanks to everyone that did reach out. But I'm still getting messages to this day from different people, not just in Australia too, from all over the world. So to me, it's very gratifying, and it solidifies the way that I live my life, because I like to put my best foot forward in all cases of life. And, if I can help someone in some way, then I'm going to do that, even if it's just by being nice. And that's something that a lot of people might think is a weakness in this sport. But I think it really showed after I won that championship that even people that met me for 5 minutes realized how genuine I am, how much I care about other people. And it's because you can't do pro wrestling on your own. It's impossible. You need the training partners. You need the tag team partners. You need opponents. You need people willing to get into the ring with you. So without all those people, I can't live my dream. So it's just me paying it forward. And I think, on that day, it really came through the way that I've been in this industry and just in life, of being friendly and being kind. And I'd like that to go further to other people, and that to be part of my message that I reach to people as the champion is just be a good person and work hard, put your head down when it's time to do that. When it's time to take a day off, take a day off. But at all times, just don't be an asshole. Just be kind and genuine. And if you can't be kind and genuine, then just keep to yourself and people will still think the same. So yeah, I mean, like that's my motto. I've been raised that way. I don't know any other way. And you would know through our initial encounters up to now, the relationship that you and I have. I really don't ever forget, from the smallest moments to the biggest ones, who's been there for the journey. And I'm super appreciative of all of that.
And sort of during your post-match press conference, you followed through with a special promise that you made to the Australian wrestling fans?
So doing the Shoei was definitely my little homage to the Australianisms. And I just wanted to continue to voice how much I appreciate who's been there and who's helped me get to where I am. So yeah, that was just my way of showing my colors in a more vibrant, physical, outpouring way.
What was the reaction like from the media and the fellow Chaos members?
Oh man, the Chaos boys made me giggle at how they reacted, especially like Yoshihashi had a bit of a bewildered shock and awe at first, and you can verbally hear Sho say, "Oh my god," and then you've just got Goto clapping me on after I'm done. Like I think he realized like that was almost his way of saying "you bloody legend" in Hiroki Goto fashion. So yeah, I don't want it to be a constant party trick. I don't want it to be something that people ask me to do on every occasion now. But I did say that if it was something that happened and I did win that title, especially after watching, a fellow Westie, Bam Bam Tuivasa win at UFC and, create that kind of cultural ritual, I had to kind of follow in his footsteps. And I mean, I've done shoeis before in other parts of the world, so it was about time that Japan caught wind of it.
Yeah, I think this one was probably the most exposed shoey in the world of wrestling, at least. Yeah,
different reaction to having Jodie Fleisch from the UK kind of next to me going, wait, what did I just see happen?
Yep. And then before you get to defend the title for the first time, you have to go through the Super Junior Tag League with your new partner, Tiger Mask. How are you feeling ahead of that tournament?
I'm feeling great. Couldn't ask for a better partner in terms of knowledge and experience when it comes to the ring, because as much as Tiger Mask is now one of those seasoned veteran legendary wrestlers in our division that might kind of get overlooked by a lot of people, I don't see it that way. I see it as, okay, where I might slip up and make a mistake, he wouldn't second guess those openings. So I feel like we can mesh really well together. I've obviously been watching variations of Tiger Mask for so long, being so influenced by junior heavyweight wrestling in Japan, that it's very full circle for me to team with him as well, because when I first debuted in New Japan Pro Wrestling as part of the same tournament, I fought against him and Jushin Liger. I've already teamed with Jushin Liger, so now it's time I team with the other person that I face off against. So I'm really looking forward to the combinations that we can make happen. I almost want to try and be that invigorating energy for him as well, to see if I can get him to have a bit of a more spring in his step. As much as he says, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm old," or whatever it may be, I'm like, no, you're still Tiger Mask. You're still the man. You're still one of the guys that pioneered this division and the way that we wrestle. So I'm really excited and looking forward to it. Some of the teams on the other side I've obviously faced before, and then some of the pairings I have not. Dick Togo and Ghetto being the one that I'm the most particular and peculiar about. Having trained with Dick Togo back in 2011 in PWA. So it's kind of going to be very interesting for me to see what he's like now and what he's about versus what he taught me 10 years ago.
And then after that tournament, you have the championship match has already been announced at the next Wrestle Grand Slam event in the MetLife Dome on September 5. What are your thoughts heading into that match?
I said before Wrestle Grand Slam at the Tokyo Dome that I wanted to be like Ash Barty at Wimbledon, right? I wanted to bring home the gold or in my words, the trophy, which is the IWGP Junior Heavyweight Championship. So now I'm just looking to be like one of those athletes and go back to back. So we've got another Wrestle Grand Slam. We're at another dome. It's at the MetLife Dome. And I'm ready to just prove my worth as the champion. I proved myself as a contestant for that title by winning it. So now it's time to defend it. And Hiromu is a guy that I've been in the ring with a few times now since he came back from his initial injury back in the start of 2020, and in his initial return match in 2019, very late in December, I pinned him. So I've proven that I can beat him. He got the better of me in the Super Juniors last year, but he's not got the upper hand here. He's coming off an injury. He's going to have some ring rust. I'm the champion. I've been fighting even for the 7 months that I was away from New Japan Pro Wrestling and in Australia solely. I was fighting the best and as many and every opponent that I could. So, I mean, it's tested. I've got to prove it to everyone that watches New Japan. I've got to prove to everyone that's going to be at the MetLife Stadium on that day, September 5th. And yeah, I just got to defuse the ticking time bomb, which I think I've got the ammo to do.
And if you're successful, do you want to bring the title back home and defend it in, say, PWA or MCW or EPW?
I'd love to defend it anywhere I can. It's obviously going to be part and parcel of, first of all, defending the championship and being the champion post the MetLife Dome. And then it's going to be about where the world stands in terms of travel. It was pretty difficult for me to even get here. And I imagine it's going to be just as difficult for me to get home at the moment. So if I need to stay here a little bit longer, then so be it. As long as I'm defending the championship. And then when I can, I'll take it wherever I have to. Taking it back home and defending it against the greatest juniors in Australia, I'd take great pride in that. Going back to the Philippines when they're open back up and wrestling there, because I had such a great time there in 2020, that's definitely one that I want to tick off the bucket list. And then every other country that wants to have me, bring your best junior, put them against the champ, and let's see what happens. And if I lose to someone that's greater than me. But I'm riding confidence right now, so I think it's not going to go that way. But we've just got to see where the world opens up and what doors, forbidden or not, are open.
Yeah, fingers crossed that everything sort of starts to open back up and we get back to a bit of normality. In the lead up to the Tokyo Dome show, what sort of entertainment did you use to get through the travel period?
Yeah, so we hit the road a little bit right before. We traveled to Osaka for a couple of days, and right before we were in Nagoya, which we actually took a bullet train back from the Nagoya event straight to Tokyo so that we could be ready for the next day. So obviously, traveling, I can't do that in silence. I need to be either listening to something or watching something just as a distraction to take my mind away from the time that's like, okay, if I'm sitting on a plane, a train, or a bus, I can't work out, I can't prepare, I can't always eat. So I need to do stuff to keep my mind kind of active and not just start getting lazy. Parks and Rec is something that I always go back to just for a bit of a laugh because it's an easy watch. But then I have like other things that are guilty pleasures, like something that I've been watching a lot here, and it's all thanks to my wife because of watching it in the background when I'm at home, is Below Deck Mediterranean, which is such a random show for me to watch, but I enjoy it, and it's just a casual thing, so I've been watching that on my time off. I've been watching The Ultimate Fighter because one of my favorite fighters and someone that's starting to become a bit more friendly with me on social media is the UFC champ Alex Volkanovski, who's from kind of your neck of the woods. And, I've wanted to support him because I've been supporting him for a long time since I found out about him from the local circuit, probably about 10 years ago. So I've definitely been watching that on a regular basis. And then prior to that, I was watching the Loki series that was on Disney+. So yeah, it's quite seasonal to a degree of what's kind of coming out and relative right now. But then there's things like Parks and Rec where I just go back for a nostalgia hit, chuck on a random episode just for something casual to watch as well.
How have you been finding this season of Ultimate Fighter?
It's been different to all the past seasons, and I think that's mainly because of the switch to ESPN. It's more straightforward and all about the fighting, which is something I enjoy. It's not so much about the antics and the characters. I think they got people that are less like TV personalities and more like legitimate fighters, which is good for the sport because in the past there might have been some picks for the show thinking this guy's going to be crazy, this guy's going to be outlandish, they're going to create some buzz for the TV show, so let's get them on even though they're not the best fighter. The fights have been great. I actually just watched the latest episode at the gym this morning, and that fight, incredible. I'm not going to give spoilers in case people are still catching up, but episode 9 has one of the best fights of the season. And MMA has been something that I've been a fan of for a long, long time alongside wrestling. So it's something very easy for me to sit back and enjoy.
Okay, so yeah, so it sounds like with the switch to ESPN, it's been more sport focused rather than the entertainment aspect.
I think so, yeah, which makes a whole lot of sense.
Along that note, I watched a new movie yesterday called Embattled, which is all about a UFC fighter and his son getting into the sport. It follows a man called Cash Boykins, who's played by Stephen Dorff, and his character is very clearly based on Conor McGregor, very sort of outlandish and flamboyant.
Right.
And inside the octagon, he's the best fighter there's ever been in this movie. But outside the cage, he's a horrible father and a horrible husband. But for some reason, the son still looks up to his dad like he's a hero and wants to follow in his footsteps to also become a fighter. And then obviously, pretty predictable, that ends up leading to the ultimate final fight of Boykins versus Boykins, father versus son. And while it revolves all around the MMA world, it's the moments outside the cage and the octagon that are the most compelling in this movie. It's very heartfelt, especially with the son, Jet. His younger brother has Williams syndrome, which is very similar to like Down syndrome. And you just get to see him actually be this really loving, caring brother who then gets in the ring and fights for a living. So it's pretty crazy in that aspect. But yeah, it's one of those films that it snuck up on me. I didn't sort of see anything about it, and then I saw a trailer. I was like, okay, that looks pretty cool. But then watching it, it sort of sneaks up on you and delivers a knockout blow with the emotional aspect that you don't really expect from a sports MMA movie.
Right, yeah. I mean, it sounds like something that I'd definitely be into, so I'm going to have to check it out.
It's now available to watch on demand, and I think it's only $6.99 on Apple, so it's a nice, easy, fairly cheap purchase.
Well, I think I know what I'm doing in the next time that I need something to watch.
And were you watching Survivor as well, did you mention?
Yeah. So thank Lord for VPNs, because without that I wouldn't be able to stay tuned to Australian Survivor, which our common friend, the former Maddie Warburg, now Grayson Waller, kind of got me really hooked onto, because before I was, I think, more of a casual watcher that would tune in for an episode here or there, but nothing religious. Whereas since that season, which I was actually watching on a tour of Japan as well, I've been hooked on Survivor, mostly the Australian one though, because I think it's just a little bit more relatable for me, especially the characters that you get in that sort of cast. So yeah, I've been watching that. I actually stayed up quite late after the Tokyo Dome event finished to watch the episode that aired that night. So it was that was part of my celebration victory, was watching Survivor quite past midnight and having a few snacks. And it was a good wind down. So I'm just a little upset that it's only 2 episodes a week now. So having to wait until the next Sunday for the next episode gets me kind of biting my nails, wondering what's going to happen next. And this person's got this idol, and this person's got this clue, and this person's on the out. So like, it's really intriguing, and it's something that I'd love to if it ever presented itself as an opportunity, I'd love to give that a go. Or even Mick Moretti once during a lockdown hosted a Zoom version of Survivor that was quite fun for a bunch of people in PWA during the tough times of being stuck in our homes. So even doing something like that, where it's more of like a games night or organized, almost like an escape room kind of deal. If someone set up a bunch of mini Survivor games for like a 1-day event, I'd be down for something like that too, because I think that's a really cool idea.
Who would you cast in a sort of New Japan PWA crossover Survivor show?
Oh, I think just to have like the like, you'd have to get people that speak relatively good English, so that might eliminate a lot of the Japanese guys from being able to like have that crossover without the language barriers, right? So like, if you just picked the foreign competitors here in New Japan, I think that could create a pretty good team. So you could have the Gaijins of New Japan Pro Wrestling versus like a Australian All-Stars Pro Wrestling team. I think would be really cool. So you'd have you'd have people like I think you'd have to have Juice Robinson on the team for New Japan, because he would just be so outlandish and over the top that you wouldn't even be able to tell whether he's lying or telling the truth half the time, because he'd probably like just say he's got 6 idols and not have any, or he has one secretly, like stuff like that. I think Jay White would be an interesting person on that team as well. Like he could be someone that could take out a lot just because of how cunning he is. And then I'm just trying to think who else would be like an interesting person. I don't want to like, we could list everyone here, but I'm trying to think who could be like a bit of an underdog.
I guess you could chuck El Phantasmo in there to have the internal rivalry within the team between him and yourself.
Man, I'd be voting for him every time, like without fail. If I had to camp with him, I would probably hate my life. But I think someone like Zack Sabre would actually be like real secretive about the way that he plays the game. So he would be someone that you would want to watch at all times. And then from PWA or from like an Australian All-Stars perspective, Mick Moretti, absolutely, because he would be like the face-offs between him and Juice Robinson would be wild. So I just want to see that. Jack Bonza, because he's so straightforward, I think would play it quite well. And then you've got someone like Kingsley, who would just play that social game really, really well, because she's really good at like befriending you and besiding you and making you feel like you're kind of, she's doing you a favor kind of thing or something, but really you'd be working for her in terms. And then in terms of where I would sit on the team, I don't know. I'd have to maybe sit on the fence. I would hope that I'd get to swap tribes so I could play both sides at one point. But yeah, man, that's kind of a dream now of me wanting to see like 2 wrestling sides go at it in Survivor style games. I think that'd be a cool idea.
Then the other show I've been watching recently is on Apple TV Plus, Mythic Quest, which is all about a fictional games production company. It's 9 episodes. It's like a straight up sitcom, like sort of like The Office. It's all about the internal office politics rather than the actual making of the games itself. Ubisoft helped develop the series, so it has that really authentic feel to what a game studio should feel like, but it's still like outlandish and over the top at points as well. It's a very, very funny show. I think it's a sleeper of a show that's on Apple TV Plus. I think everybody's sort of heard about The Morning Show and a couple of the others on there, but this one is sort of one that not a lot of people seem to have checked out, whereas I think it's equally as good as sort of a Ted Lasso in terms of the comedy aspect.
Sounds like I'm getting vibes of a crossover between The Office and the IT crowd. So
yep,
if that's kind of where the jokes would lie, that's something that I'd be quite keen on seeing. So I'm definitely going to have to be another thing that I check out.
Yeah, it's great, and they've actually got a lot of sort of game personalities pop in as well. They have Ashley Birch, who's a very well known voice actor and mocap specialist for a lot of video games as an actual cast member on the show. So they have done a really good job of sort of keeping it authentic and still being silly and fun at the same time. And a lot of your wrestling gear is inspired by gaming as well. Are there any games in particular that you've based gear off?
So majority of the stuff that's been inspired by games has come from the Final Fantasy series. The initial set that I wore when I debuted in New Japan Pro Wrestling as part of the Bullet Club was actually based off a variation of Cloud Strife from Final Fantasy VII. So that was when I had a vest that had like an eagle head sitting on one shoulder, and then even just the black tights, because the idea was I wanted it to be quite militant and soldier-esque. And when I thought of soldier, I thought of Soldier from Final Fantasy VII. So it kind of just all started coming together quite quickly. And then I've done plenty of variations of jackets that have been inspired from Final Fantasy. So I did there was another one that was inspired by Cloud from sort of the Kingdom Hearts side of things, where he was a bit more like war-torn, and it was supposed to be post Final Fantasy VII in this new universe, I guess. And then one of my favorite ones was actually based off Squall from Final Fantasy VIII. So I had the fluffy kind of, I guess, boa neck, and then it was like a one sleeve jacket, because that was something that I would always do to be my variant and my style of it. They were all made, those two were made by Leah, who works in the games industry, and she's based out of Sydney as well. I think she's Legionette on Twitter, and she does amazing work. Whereas my latest vest and jacket has been based on the Winter Soldier from the Marvel universe. So I take my inspirations from many different kind of courses. A lot of it does come from fighters or gun wielding characters, though, because I think the first big kind of like elaborate jacket that I did, which I would have worn Call to Arms 2018 against Will Ospreay, was based off Vincent Valentine from Final Fantasy VII as well. So yeah, I always kind of take my inspirations from that side of the realm, from video games and movies and things like that. Is going to be more, okay, strong fighter, gun wielding character. Does that all incorporate to what, you know, I am as a Robbie Eagles name? So I kind of wanted to keep it relative like that. But in terms of where I'm going to head to next, there's a few ideas floating out there. There's some design concepts for some stuff in the future. Can't reveal too much now, but it might go in a completely different direction in terms of what pop culture it uses as inspiration.
Okay, yeah, because we've seen the Cronulla Sharks inspired one before, obviously the green and gold from the Tokyo Dome, and you mentioned wanting to do a Philippines one as well. Yeah.
So I actually did have a set that I wore in the Philippines that was based off most of the Filipino flag colors, but I only got to wear those once, and they didn't quite last throughout. It was a bit of a tough match, so they didn't last too well afterwards. So I'm going to have to do a new spin on that anyway, just because I've got a different design on my gear. So yeah, look for that in the future. I think that'll probably be the next one.
Okay, awesome. And I think you were planning to check out Space Jam: A New Legacy. Did you manage to get onto that one?
No, I haven't. That and Black Widow have been the things that have been on my to-do list. So I've just got to check when I can catch it in English at one of the cinemas here. And the release dates are a little bit different in Japan. So I know I can go see Black Widow now, but I haven't really investigated Space Jam just yet. The schedule's been quite busy, but I do have a week off coming up from August 1st. So I'll probably have some downtime to go, hopefully fit in at least one movie during that period.
The joys of being the champ, always busy now?
I don't know if it's a joy, but it's definitely something that keeps your mind working and your body going as well. So yeah, I mean, I can't complain too much. At least I'm not getting lazy.
Is it difficult to find English screenings in Japan at the moment?
I've never actually been to the cinema on any of my trips here, but from my research, I think it's quite common to find that they're subtitled more often than not. So a lot of the cinema chains will just have Japanese subtitles over an English spoken movie. I think what's rarer is to find them dubbed for the foreign movies here. So I think it'll be easy to find, but I haven't really gone that extra mile to buying a ticket and actually rocking up to the theater yet. So we'll see what happens when that comes to it.
Okay. Yeah, I've seen the Space Jam: A New Legacy, and it's fun. It's probably not as good as the original, in my opinion. But apparently this sequel has been in the works for quite a while. But when Michael Jordan turned it down, they then looked at other athletes like Tony Hawk and Tiger Woods, eventually settling on LeBron James. If you had to draft an all-star 5 wrestler team from Australia in New Japan, for your own Space Jam style competition, who would be the 5?
Man, it's a hard question. Right. If I had to pick from Australia, so it's 5-on-5, right?
Yep.
All right. I reckon I'm just going to stack the tallest people up and see how they go. I'd put both of Back Pain. I'd put Matt Rogers. Who else is on the taller end? I'd put Silvio. And, man, who else is another tall person? I'd put Ben Braxton. That would be my 5 for the Australian side. And that's just the first 5 tallest people that I could think of. And obviously they're all people that I like train with or I see more regularly than people in a state. So I'm probably forgetting some.
Pretty athletic team, though.
5 from New Japan. I put Okada on the team because he's actually deceptively tall. I think a lot of people forget how tall he actually is. Who else is another? Zach is quite tall and limber, so I'd put him on the team as well. If I can include him because he's a current champ, I'd put Lance Archer because he holds the US title, so he can be included on that side of things. Hikuleo would be on the team as well, as much as he might not get along with Lance Archer because they just fought for the title. And who would be my 5th? Who else is another tall boy that's here? I'm just trying to think. Oh man, I'm getting stumped for who another tall person would be. Actually, I'd put Rocky Romero on the team just because I think I've seen him bounce the ball a little bit before shows when we've just been kind of casually working out and we've had a ball accessible to us. And he'd be like sneakily getting into some gaps where I think all the taller players wouldn't see him coming from. So he'd be someone I'd stick on there. And just because of the banter that he'd give the other team, I'd love to see him rile them up.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. I think he'd be the sort of person that would get under people's skin just with the talk.
Yeah, and you'd have Taguchi as the coach. So
yeah, that's the perfect choice, I think, there. So yeah, that's basically all. Do you have a top recommendation for the week that people should be checking out?
There is a show that I'll go back and watch occasionally. It's quite old now, and it only got 1 season, and I wish it got more because it left on a cliffhanger, and I loved it. It was a show that I think MTV ran called Death Valley, and it actually had like this really great cast. Yeah, I would recommend people to go seek out Death Valley from MTV, which was probably around 2010, 2011-ish. I was hooked on it. It's a really cool story of like, it's set not futuristically, but in a different reality where, vampires and werewolves and other kind of cool part of reality. And the police actually enforce laws on all these creatures. So it's like a cool dynamic of like a cop show and taking it on a different spin with a lot of comedic elements. But also, as the season gets to a finale, it starts getting to like a pretty cultivating finish. So it's definitely something that's more obscure and something that whenever I talk to people about it, no one seems to have ever heard of it before. So that's something that I would get people to check out if they're looking for something different.
Okay, yeah, I've never heard of it, but you've sold me on it now, so that's what I'm doing this afternoon, going to find that one. For me, I'm suggesting people check out Mythic Quest just because it is that sort of sneaky Apple TV Plus show that there are 2 seasons now. I'm only partway through season 2, so I'm not going to say too much about season 2, but that first season, surprisingly good. I wasn't expecting a huge amount from it. I kind of expected it to be a little bit corny simply because it was based on video games, but yeah, it's not that. It's a very good show. Thank you, everyone, for listening to the commentary booth. If you enjoyed the show, please remember to rate, review, and subscribe on podcast services. We're also on Twitch and YouTube. You can follow me on social media at JamieUps Media and at Pario Magazine. And you can follow Robbie on social media at Robbie Eagles. __ on everything. Thank you for coming onto the show this week, Robbie. Go ahead and let all our listeners know where the best place is to follow along with your journey in New Japan and where they can support you directly.
Well, thank you, first of all, Jamie, for having me on the show. It's been a blast to chat about some of the stuff that I've been enjoying in terms of entertainment and what I can do for my time off and downtime. People can follow along by subscribing to newjapanworld.com. It's a little bit over $10 a month for everyone back home in Australia. Very easy service. You can catch some legendary matches from the past, including great wrestlers like AJ Styles, like Finn Balor. You can see Shinsuke Nakamura's kind of initial startup in pro wrestling on New Japan World as well. And as well, you can follow along with my journey as the new IWGP Junior Heavyweight Champion at a reasonable time for Australians watching, because the hour difference is only by 1. So you're probably catching me on prime time around 6 or 7 p.m. Also, you can head to Pro Wrestling Tees and Wrestler merch. Search for my store on both of those websites, Robbie Eagles, where you can pick up some T-shirts and some other properties and merchandise items, and that's how you can support me directly.
Brilliant. And you have the new New Japan shirt as well. I think that's available on their global shop as well.
Yeah, if it's not on the global shop yet, it will be soon. But I know you can get it from the Japanese New Japan merchandise store right now, which is the brand new Surrender to the Sniper T-shirt, which is kind of the motto I've been going into with these matches. And hey, I said Desperado was going to do that, and he surrendered. So I think I've got a winner there.
Brilliant. Thanks again for coming on, and good luck with the Super Junior tournament and the first title defense.
Thanks, Jamie. Been a pleasure.
The Commentary Booth is a fan-funded production of Jamie Apps Media. You can support the podcast alongside our new magazine, Pario Magazine, on Patreon at patreon.com/Jamie Apps Media. The following people have supported at the publisher level or higher, and you cannot fathom how incredibly appreciative we are for their support. Brian and June Hart, Courtney Paulson, Tracy Apps.